Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we'll talk about biofortification of staple crops. We have multiple lectures on this title, so that's why I have divided it into biofortification staple crops one. So today we will cover one part, and then we will have the next second part, and maybe the third part. So I hope in 3 lectures or in 2 lectures, we will cover the biofortification of staple crops. First of all, what is staple food or staple crops? A staple food is food that is routinely consumed and constitutes a significant proportion of the calories requirements of a standard diet in a community. And most commonly used staples are corn, rice, and wheat. These are basically those food which is used as a bulk, as we are using wheat or rice in some areas, and in some countries they are using maize as a major crop. In some countries, so they are also using some other crops like cassava. So that contributes actually the main or major part of the food of the huge community. The reason is that especially for the poor or developing countries, we have poor populations here, and they cannot afford the high value crops, and as the staple crops are relatively cheaper, so that's why we will see in the next slide as well. If we look at the production and acreage of major staple crops, we can observe here that the maize is on the top. It's around about 822 million tons produced in the world. But here we must consider that the maize is also used as a fodder, especially the grain for silage production for the animals. So it means all that is not used for human food also, but also for the animals. So then we have a wheat, and then we have a rice, and potatoes, and cassava, and soybean. These are 6 major crops which are considered as staple in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. If we look at the distribution, wheat, you can observe from here, the greener part, the left side upper map shows the greener part. So more the greener part, it means more the production. You can see here that the whole world is producing wheat. It's well distributed throughout the world map. And then we have a maize on the right side with the purple color. You can see here that the major producing are the China and the South American countries, America, and maybe some Canada. But of course, to a certain extent, it's also being produced in Europe and some Russian states. So then we have rice. Rice, the major grown area is India, Pakistan, Philippines, Thailand, China. We are the major producer, but of course, it's also being grown on the American side as well. Then we have a cassava. Cassava is a crop in sub-Sahara Africa, and also grown in South American countries. So this is also staple food there. So if we look at that, the wheat is the most distributed throughout the world. The main reason is that it can be grown in all the climatic conditions worldwide. Rice, we know that requires a certain environment, and of course the flooded conditions and the specific soil type, so that cannot be grown throughout the world. So as I was discussing, why biofortification of staple crops? Why we consider that the only staple crop should be biofortified? If we just look at this, is although this is not a very new study, but it tells us the trend. Uh, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the developing countries. If we look at the cereal production, so that has been increased. Cereals, mostly the staples, they are cereals like maize, wheat, and rice. And we are, especially the Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, they are major producer of rice and wheat. And the production has been increased. Then we have pulses, and the pulses we can observe from here that there is a decreasing trend. And if we look at the population that is, of course, increasing. So it means the shortage which we are seeing here in the pulses production, so that is being met by cereals to certain extent. Of course, we have other foods as well, but for the time being, we are not considering that. So the one thing is clear that the cereals are consumed by a huge population and it has a great demand. Then we have in indices of inflation adjusted price for Bangladesh. Uh, so this is also a trend for our countries as well, like India, Pakistan, and other developing countries. Uh, the 100 is the basic price that is on 1973 to 75. So if we look at the overall prices, so the staples, which is in orange color, so that has been reduced. That has been reduced. The overall, this is not the actual price. This is the inflation, because the value of our rupee, if we just like consider the rupee, so we will see that the price has been increased for wheat. Uh, but it is not not the case if we talk about whole economic development, that what is the value of rupee in this at this stage. You consider the other scenarios. So and if we consider that, the prices are decreased. कि अगर हमारी wheat की production जो है या उसकी price ज़्यादा हुई है, तो हमारी जो income है that has also been increased. So अगर उसको comparison में लें, तो हमारी जो production है या price है, जो consumer price जो है, that has been reduced. अगर आप non-staple plants देखें, तो they have increased. And if we look at the fish and animals, so that has also been increased. So it means the staples, they have a very good potential because they are cheaper, their price is even reducing, and the more poor population, so that has approach to the these staple crops. So the one thing is clear here, that why we choose staple to biofortify for different nutrients, because it is in the range of the most of the populations. This is also one study which has been done in Bangladesh. So it also shows us that the major energy intakes, that is the orange part, that is from staples. So why is that? We have in the last slide, we have seen that the price has been reduced. So of course, the population in Bangladesh or in our area, so that is relatively poor, and they are getting their energy from staple. Non-staple crops, you can see here, these may be pulses and some kind of other crops, and then we have fish and animals, so that is very less. So it means still we have a major contribution of energy through staples to our population. So this is again the reason that why we have selected the staple crops. Another benefit of using staple crop is that a huge population, this is the population, a huge population is using only one crop, only one food commodity. So if they are deficient by using this commodity and you just biofortify that, it means the huge population will go towards sufficiency. Only with the uh, one intervention or scientific intervention or technological intervention, you can have a very huge impact, because that staple has been used by a huge population. So that's why this is very easy to tackle or to distribute. अगर आपके पास बायोफोर्टिफाइड wheat है तो वो पूरे कंट्री में वो चली जाएगी, तो you don't need to do any further measures to proliferate that into the population. So this is a very good parameter which can be used, and that is the reason for this staple crop biofortification. So if we look at the advantages, although we have discussed, but the targets the poor eat high level of food staples, so they will get a high level, good energy, good nutrition, high in minerals and vitamin. Rural based complements to fortification and supplementation. You can complement to fortification. It doesn't mean that you have to stop all those processes. If you are giving iodine in the form of the iodine fortified salts, so it should be continued. Then it is very cost effective because you have a one research location, and then you can multiply in the different countries at different times. But of course, you have to adapt or modify to a certain extent, but the major theme will be the same. Then we have a sustainable development. Investment are front-loaded, low recurring cost. So it's also sustainable because अगर आपने कुछ varieties develop कर ली हैं, तो then so they will sustain for a few years. Then you can go for the next one. The strategy of this biofortification program, basically that was initiated by Harvest Plus. And the strategy is developing micronutrient dense staple crops using the best traditional breeding practice and modern biotechnology to achieve provitamin A, iron, and zinc concentration that can have measurable effects on the nutritional status. So these are basically three major which were considered in the start to biofortify, because the huge population in Africa was deficient in these three micronutrients. For crops in the first phase, the rice, wheat, maize, cassava, sweet potato, and beans, so they were choose for first phase. And this for the second phase, which is also been started now, the potato, barley, cowpeas, groundnuts, lentils, millet, plantains. So this is also kind of pulses, I think. I'm not much clear at this time. Sorghum, pigeon peas, and yam. So these are basically the second phase crops which has been started. For example, the potato, barley, lentil, millet, sorghum. So they have been started to be biofortified. So the nutrient targeted in these first phase crops, that is in rice, zinc and iron, then in wheat, again zinc and iron, maize, beta carotene and zinc, in cassava, the beta carotene. So that is basically the precursor of vitamin A. Then potato, iron, and the sweet potato, vitamin A. So as the sweet potato was used for this, and then the potato was also included along with. So now we come to what some interventions which are being used to biofortify the cereals. So we will talk about zinc and iron biofortification of wheat and rice. And then, of course, we'll also cover some other crops as well. Zinc and iron biofortification of wheat and rice. Rice and wheat are two important staples and cheapest source of nourishment for billions of people worldwide. So this is the significance to biofortify it. Increase in food prices reduces the dietary diversity. Because the prices has been increased, but on the other hand, the staple crops are the rice and wheat, as I mentioned in the previous slides, that the price has been lowered down. So it has great potential. Inherently low in zinc and iron. So these are genetically low. Rice and wheat are the major source of nutrition for less resource. So your poor country, ये चूँकि inherently low है in zinc and iron, and this is also a nutrition of poor resource people, and it means they don't have any alternative to take these zinc and iron. So it means addressing these two crops will benefit a lot. About 3 billion worldwide are deficient in micronutrients, including zinc and iron, and mostly they are in the developing countries. Therefore, potential policies to address zinc and iron deficiency in food system are considered from both agriculture and nutritional perspectives. The consultative group on international agriculture research established Harvest Plus, working on biofortification aspects in collaboration with world scientists. So I think that was established somewhere in 2003. This project was launched for the biofortification, and up till now they have covered a lot of crops. So coming toward the zinc, we will talk about the agronomic biofortification, and then we will go to the genetic biofortification. Why agronomic biofortification is important? We have discussed previously as well that if we have zinc sufficient soils, so there may be less effect of agronomic biofortification, because the crops, they are already getting a sufficient amount of nutrients, and there are less response to applied fertilizer. And if you apply more than the requirement, so they will not contribute to grains. Agar uska potential nahi hai, then you cannot enhance the concentration in the grain. But if we see at the map, the orange color, it shows that the 40% of the cultivated soils globally affected from zinc deficiency. So they are zinc deficient. So it means the crops growing on that are these soils must be deficient. So if we apply zinc to such kind of soils, so we will definitely have benefit on the zinc uptake by the plant, and of course partially to the zinc concentration in the grain as well. क्योंकि अगर वो साइल में है ही कम, वो टेका भी कम कर रहा है, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि वो उसकी जो ग्रेन के अंदर कंसंट्रेशन वो भी उसी पोर्शन से या उसी रेशियो से कम है. तो अगर अपटेक बढ़ेगी तो देन इन जिंक ग्रेन में भी जिंक की कंसंट्रेशन बढ़ेगी. जो रीजंस हैं फॉर जिंक लो अवेलेबिलिटी जिंक to the plant, so there are certain soil factors which limit zinc uptake. What are those? Sorry. High calcium carbonate content. So we have definitely the soils which have high calcium carbonate content. Then we have high pH content. We have high pH, high clay soils, especially zinc deficiency. If we look at the rice area, so that has very high clay content. And we have also the low organic matter, which is a reservoir for these micronutrients especially. So enhance zinc absorption and perception. अगर हम इसमें intervention करें तो वो enhance होगी. Uh, and if its absorption is enhanced, sorry, I was not talking that intervention. It means if the soil has these properties, so the absorption will be enhanced to the soil particle or the precipitation of the zinc. And it means that the desorption will be reduced from the soil. And if the desorption is reduced, it means the uptake by these plant is that is limited. So, so these are the basic reasons. Even you have certain content in the zinc, but the plant available zinc is that is lesser. The previous slide shows basically the plant available zinc content, and we can imagine from the map that we have all these characteristics in our soils, and they are very deficient in zinc. The second, our nutrients, that is iron. We don't have such map for iron, but one thing should be clear that the iron is deficient in high pH soils like zinc. If we look at our country like Pakistan, so we have a blue color which shows that alkaline soils. So the pH is higher. It means definitely the iron concentration is also less, or the available iron content, so that is lesser. And so if we apply iron in these soils, so that will also have some negative effect in the sense that that will not be taken up by the plant because it will be converted from Fe2 to Fe3. So we'll see in the perhaps in the next slide. So it means we have also potential that we have deficient soils, iron deficient soils, and if we have some agronomic intervention, we can go for that. Agronomic biofortification with zinc has been started or had been started in 2004 in Turkey, and they have very significant results because their soils are very deficient in zinc. Then agronomic biofortification of wheat and zinc, wheat with zinc. Fertilizer type, of course, that effect urea enriched with zinc sulfate is widely used fertilizer in both rice and wheat. Then we application time, best time if applied during the grain filling or milk stage, so that will affect the to enhance the zinc concentration in the grain. If we just apply to the soil at sowing time, so that is not much affecting. Then the foliar application of zinc during grain filling is 3 to 60 times more effective as compared to soil application. Zinc priming increase the yield but not grain zinc concentration effectively. Although few studies with positive impact have been reported, लेकिन जो zinc priming है उसका zinc की concentration में कोई खास effect नहीं है. Although कुछ studies हैं. Combination application or combined application methods. If we have a seed treatment, seed priming, we are also applying to the soil at sowing time to certain amount, and then we are also foliar apply the foliarly or on the foliage, then that will also have more effect on the grain zinc concentration. If we look at the iron, agronomic biofortification iron is less viable due to rapid conversion of Fe2 to Fe3, which is Fe3 is not plant available. So it means soil application of iron is not significant in such cases. Chelated iron may be more effective because it will not be converted to Fe3. And then the foliar application of FeSO4 may be used for more effectively to enhance the grain zinc grain iron concentration. The chelated iron which we may apply to the soil, so that is very expensive and may not be working. So I think we should stop here, and we will start in the next lecture.